Radio Rahim with Roy Jones Jr. If you see a particularly big smile on my face, it's because you're one of the guys I most enjoy talking to. And it's been too long since I've had an opportunity to do just that. Usually I don't start with a little monologue, but let me also say that as a post-fighter, not to mention a pound-for-pound king, I say your career after the ring has been exactly what I'd hoped it would be. I was one of the first, if not the first, to say Roy Jones Jr. could be one of the greatest boxing trainers the business has ever seen. And I'm excited to have seen you take that mantle and now in the corner for the debut of Chris Eubank on Sky Sports as a main event. What is it about Chris that made you say, well, this is the guy I'm going to take under my wing and help through this journey?
He's a guy that can do everything. It's like he's one of these guys that when you ask of him, he ain't only willing to do it, but he has the capabilities to do it. So most guys, you can ask a lot of things, they just don't have it, they just can't do it. This guy can do almost everything I ask of him. And to be able to take your knowledge and pour it in somebody that can actually duplicate and add on to what you did is the most beautiful thing ever to me.
And just that kind of thought process right there is what a lot of boxing fans may not realize when they see fighters who they root for not able to accomplish a task that they thought they might be able to accomplish. So I have to also put on your analyst hat because, once again, you're one of my favorite, if not favorite, guys to call a fight ringside. Let me take you back to last Saturday night as we are in London today with what could be considered an upset against Anthony Joshua, but some people, such as yourself, weren't surprised at all. First, explain to me why you weren't surprised by the outcome of Joshua Usyk.
First thing is that Usyk is not just a boxer. Usyk is undisputed cruiserweight champ of the world first. Now he's unified heavyweight champ. When a guy wins a cruiserweight title is one thing, but to be undisputed and to have the tournaments and go through fighting the best of the best, they threw them all in a basket, and Usyk came out on top with no black eyes, no nothing, no knockdowns, no nothing. He dominated the cruiserweight division, and there are some real monsters in that cruiserweight division. You understand me? So for him to dominate that division tells you that he has to be pretty freaking good. Now, with the boxing situation at hand, Joshua won a gold medal as a heavyweight after 3 years of amateur boxing, but Usyk won a gold medal as a light heavyweight, whatever it was, after a long time of boxing. So he definitely has the experience advantage coming into the fight. People say, how you see the fight? The fight gonna go the distance? Yes. But if the fight goes the distance after round 5, Joshua gonna have a problem because now it's gonna go to the boxing IQ, and Usyk wins the boxing IQ match. So the smarter thing that happened was for Joshua to come out and wreck him or cause him all kind of problems in that first 5-round period. Now he can take advantage of the late Usyk because Usyk will be either damaged or Usyk got to operate worrying about his punching power. Now he has a different Usyk. Now the IQ ain't so good because you've injured him. If you don't injure him and you let him be comfortable after round 5, you can't beat him. The IQ's too good.
Game plan is what you're talking about. Yeah. And Joshua clearly, even in my post-fight interview with him, explained that he intended to box. He wanted to outbox a boxer.
Who does that? Who does that? Who does that? Listen. Exactly why, hence why Canelo Alvarez lost his fight with Floyd Mayweather. You don't go out there and box the boxer and you bigger than him. Are you crazy? Calm down, bro.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it wasn't a good idea to go out there with a guy who has a very high IQ, who's a smaller guy, who doesn't have a big punch, and plan on outboxing him. That's not a good idea.
Now, what happens is people write Joshua off now. They saw what they saw. And they were frustrated by the same thing you were. But in the rematch, is it possible for Joshua to employ the right strategy, which I'll let you explain what that is, and win that fight against Usyk?
Once again, you can't write Joshua off for several reasons, but the main reason is because round 4, 5, and 6, Joshua fought him like he should have fought round 1, 2, and 3. And he won those rounds clearly. He made it very uncomfortable for Usyk. Although Usyk has the better IQ, the bigger man doing the right things made it very uncomfortable for him. So When you're fighting a boxer, you don't box him, you fight him. When you're fighting a fighter, you don't fight him, you box him.
We have to look now a week ahead, as we just looked a week behind. Yet another stylistic matchup that is a challenge sometimes for fans to grasp what the dynamic really is. What is the dynamic in the third fight for Wilder and Fury this coming Saturday?
The dynamic in the third fight is how much was Deontay Wilder able to captivate and implement into his game plan from the new trainer he got. How much of that can he put to work? Because we've seen that gym help Lennox Lewis, and they helped Vladimir Klitschko. But the man of that gym, Emmanuel Stewart, was alive when it happened. These guys were around to watch that happen. So I'm quite sure they knew and took heed to what Emmanuel taught those guys, how he made them better. If they can implement that into Wilder's game, then it's very possible we can see a little bit different of a fight. If Wilder comes out depending on the power again, being a brown bomber, I can't see him really beating Fury.
Is there enough time to implement the kind of game plan that Emmanuel Stewart would give a Wilder? I ask because of what you said is you can get a trainer who tells you what to do, but can you do it? Wilder in the past has said your skills don't pay the bills, the right hand is enough. He hasn't been one to invest in the science of boxing. If he does that now, is there enough time for him to be proficient enough in it to beat Fury in the third matchup?
And that, my friend, depends on how bad he wants to beat Fury.
Yes, sir. Now, let me visit the Legends series, of which you made not just popular, but something that people thought going forward would be a spectacle worth watching. Your fight with Mike Tyson was all the entertainment. I, for one, was a little worried about both of you. You came out well, and I was glad for that. But of recent, we've seen Evander Holyfield take the squared circle on one more time, and it not turn out to be the kind of entertainment that I don't think anybody wanted to see. When it comes to these kind of matchups for legends, what do you think the criteria should be for a guy getting in there and putting his life at risk?
Well, I got both my ears, so I made it out of mine okay. I can't really say how I feel about everybody else is doing it because it all depends on the individuals. However, we have to have respect for this game. If we don't teach this game respect, then it's never going to get anywhere. It's like I seen a post from Shaq there by Deion Sanders saying, in the old days, the gangsters looked out for the athletes. And the athletes took heed to that, and they stayed focused on being athletes, not gangsters. Because there's two sides of the street. Either you're a gangster or you're an athlete. You can't walk both sides of the street. Now, you can be affiliated with both sides because one helps the other. But you can't walk both sides of the street. You gotta let the gangsters be the gangsters. Now, you can be the person that represent them in the sports world, but you can't be them. You understand me? So it's like, we have to understand that sometimes when you're an athlete, an ex-athlete, you gotta have respect for your sport. You can't go out there with a person that don't have respect for the sport, because you can put on a good show and do some good stuff, but for me, I was glad that they said we couldn't knock each other out, because now I know Mike don't know how to adhere to that too good, but I know that don't go out there and do that stupid, because they're going to stop the fight. They said if they see you trying to do something stupid. So I just was smart. We good enough. We've been boxing our whole lives. We know how to go out there and put on a good shot, a good exhibition, land some good shots, but don't be trying to take his head off, because if you do, they're going to stop it. They didn't implement that in this last fight with Holyfield, and that's bad.
Speaking of guys who respect the sport and legends in the sport, such as yourself, we've seen in recent days, being yesterday, in fact, the retirement officially of Manny Pacquiao. Give me your thoughts on the legacy of Pacquiao and whether or not, I know you're one that everyone told to retire many times and you proved them wrong many times and you stayed as long as you wanted to, about his choosing to retire now.
That's always the boxer's choice. They didn't tell him when to start, and they don't deserve to tell him when to stop. When he decides to stop, that's his choice. And I'm glad that he went out on his own shield when he got ready to go, not being forced out by nobody else, because he entertained that world too long, this world too long in the sport of boxing. From that one continent, he brought that whole continent so much joy, so many great times, so many great opportunities to fellowship together and represent themselves as a nation until nobody but him has the right to tell him when to retire. So I'm so happy that Manny Pacquiao retired on his own when he decided to retire.
You know, the Pacquiao-Mayweather rivalry will go down as one of the greatest of all time in history. And now that they are both officially retired, we get to reflect on what they brought to the sport as individuals and compare their legacies as retired fighters. My first question is, which career would you rather to have had? The way Pacquiao approached boxing, and certainly is not undefeated, or the way Floyd...
We ain't gonna do that because that's not my thing. I'm not Floyd and I'm not Pacquiao. That's not my thing. My thing is that for Pacquiao, I really hate for his sake that he didn't get to fight Floyd when he was at his peak, because I know he wanted to fight Floyd at his peak, but Floyd did different things and didn't fight him at his peak. So to talk about who career you rather have, I ain't got to get into all that. I would rather for Pacquiao, like Pacquiao, I'm sure, to have been able to fight him at his peak, because when you get to your peak, that's the time to fight the best fights in your career. So if you don't fight in your peak, then you didn't fight the best fight then. That's why when I found out that I had been denied the opportunity to fight James Toney the first time, I was like, oh no, this won't ever happen again. If I get the opportunity again, I'm fighting him because he's pound for pound number one. I'm on my way up, but I'm in my prime right now. When I'm going to fight him when I get old? No, the time to fight him is now, while we're both in our prime. And that's what I did. So for me, it's a little bit different. Florida's a whole different animal. He's a different type of businessman. He do things another way. And that's cool. I got nothing but the most respect for how he do things. But for me, that's not how I did it. And for Pacquiao, I can't use that and say, oh, that was his biggest rival. How? That's not his biggest rival. The biggest rival would be the ones he had in his prime, when he was at his peak. So don't tell me that was his biggest rivalry. That was beyond, after he got knocked out by Marquez finally. Him and Marquez had 3 wars. You understand me? Now after he finally get knocked out by Marquez, then he come back. That's not his peak, bro. Don't say he fought him at his peak, so that's not right. So I can't compare them two things like that. Now, and you go back and look at it, you say, well, which career you want? Most people gonna want Floyd's career because Floyd made so much money and he did it by doing things at the right time. Cool. Roy, no, that's not a career I would want. I want that one where I dominated, and I can't say I want Pacquiao either because I want to be the dominator all of them, all the time in my prime, like I did.
That's
you understand me? So
that's
not fair to ask me.
And lastly, a guy who's not anywhere near retired and arguably the pound-for-pound king of boxing, and I wonder if you agree with that statement. Of course, I'm talking about Canelo Alvarez, who has a fight just a couple weeks down the road himself. Where do you rate him right now on the list of pound-for-pound best?
You got to give him pound-for-pound the best right now. He's 4th-division champ already. You understand me? How can you not say pound-for-pound? I mean, don't get it wrong. Terrence Crawford is a close second, but because of the fact that he couldn't fight Spence, they can't make that happen. And everybody been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it won't happen. You kind of had to push to the side because Canelo's still doing what he can do, what he got to do. So I would love to see Terrence get the opportunities Canelo get to fight guys, because I feel like he still have an argument in that pound-pound debacle. Because to me, it's hard to say with the 3 of them, him, Canelo, and I know he lost to Teofimo Lopez, but that dude still can box. That dude still got skills. You understand? Lomachenko still got skills. So it's hard not to mention him in that class, because when you talk about skills, he got skills. He may not have the size, but he got skills. So, but we want to see everybody active. And we don't get this opportunity to see Terrence active against the real fighters like Canelo getting. Canelo getting a chance to fight champ after champ after champ. But them guys won't fight Terrence. So,
Roy, and I thank you for this, you stay in our consciousness from the beginning of your boxing career. You've never gone away. But I think that sometimes people get used to seeing you and they don't put you in proper context in history. When people ask for the best of all time, one of the best ever did it, you have to be right there at the top of that conversation. I think far too often people don't put you there because they haven't put you out of their mind in history yet. With that said, taking on this challenge as being a trainer, I know I can see it in you, still the competitive nature. What is your goal when they say Roy Jones Jr. trainer? What's the legacy you want to leave behind in this field?
I want to show that I can not only take a guy and start him and take him there, but I can also take a guy that's halfway there or almost there and take him there. It's like, this is why I always respected Emmanuel Stewart. Emmanuel Stewart had more guys that he started boxing from day one they took to make champions out of than any of these other trainers they talk about. Now, he also helped guys who are already established, like the Lennox Lewises of the world, the Chris Coles of the world, the Andy Lees of the world, and he also made them better. So Emmanuel Stewart was what you call a true trainer because he could make anybody better, whether it was a beginner or a guy that's already world champion. Other guys haven't proven that. Some of them prove they can make a guy that's got the credentials to be a world champion better, yeah, but can you take a guy that's nothing, that nobody ever heard of, and make him champ? That's when you're really doing it, and that's what I want to do. Now, outside of that, all y'all got to remember, Roy still got a little bit of flow in him. So I do have a new single I call Y'all Must Have Forgot Part 2. So if y'all forgot who I really am, go get that single and check it out.
Bars,
It'll remember
Roy.
y'all.
Give me some bars.
It doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying?
I haven't forgotten. Give me just a taste.
It'd be hard because I be thinking, I got some other stuff that be saying like, King Jones, I need my crown. You can line them up, I knock some down. I'm the greatest talking pound for a pound, and ain't no way to stop me now, huh? They can't, it's no way. I just do whatever I want to when I get ready. They can't stop me, brother, you know?
Bars. Thank you for making everything better. Boxing in the ring, now in the corner, making my interviews better, making my day better. Roy Jones Jr., I appreciate you. Good to see you, brother. Radio Rahim, Roy Jones Jr.